So stop me if you've heard this before, but whenever Kalen DeBoer was hired to be the next coach of the Crimson Tide, there were many voices out there questioning whether or not Alabama would even be able to recruit at a level close to what they had become accustomed to. Well, fast forward to now, the first day of July, and Alabama is currently the hottest team on the nation on the trail, coming out of a June that, quite frankly, I don't know that I've ever seen before, filled with top wins and major events. Today, we need to look back on June, talk about what happened, talk about why it's big, but also we need to look forward and ask the question, will that momentum continue into the month of July? But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes, N for no. Do you believe Alabama's hot streak will continue? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as we are so close to 22,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of this incredible community. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below as those interactions are massive. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And with yet another prospect committing tomorrow that Alabama wants, the 4-star tight end Caleb Edwards, we're sitting here today asking the question whether or not the incredible momentum that Alabama gathered in the month of June can continue into July. And in order to answer that question, we have to look back. Because it wasn't long ago that Kalen DeBoer was hired, and we heard so many outside voices talking about he's not going to be able to recruit in the South. He's not going to be able to recruit in an elite level, and Alabama being able to rein in top 10 recruiting classes, those days are done. Well, as we currently sit here, July 1st, Alabama has the number 2 recruiting class in the nation, only behind Ohio State, who they've made up ground on, and their momentum looks to continue into July, or at least Alabama fans hope so. Now, let me be very clear here before we really dive into the meat of this video. We are not trying to crown Kalen DeBoer as the best recruiter in the nation. We are not saying that Alabama has won it all because they are currently doing well in recruiting before pen ever hits paper. We understand, and I know, that pen doesn't hit paper until December. Those commits don't actually sign until then. So everything we're talking about needs to be talked about with that in mind, with that nuance in play. However, that doesn't dismiss the great job Kalen DeBoer has done, because that argument of, oh, well, what does this matter? They don't sign until December. That argument can be applied to every single team in college football right now that's recruiting, because it's true. So we do need to move forward with that nuance understood, but in my opinion, though it is important to know that, that doesn't take away from the incredible job this staff has done. Both the names that we see and the names in the background that continue to do an incredible job moving mountains for the University of Alabama. But let's look back on the month of June, which included so many big-time wins, 9 to be exact, some 5-star guys, and a guy that I think will be a 5-star in no time at all. But we're going to start with Dejoun Lee, a name that we have been talking about for months over here on this channel. And this was a win that personally I found to be really compelling. The reason quite simple, because even though Kalen DeBoer and Courtney Morgan had identified Lee as a guy they wanted when they were at Washington, that's only half the story. The other half of the story is a year ago at this time, there were articles coming out saying, hey, though we're not predicting a commitment, USC is really looking good in the battle for Dejoun Lee. Now, the reason why I continue to bring that to your attention is because of who the USC DB coach was, Coach Williams, who is now at Georgia. By the way, T-Rob, now at Georgia. So this staff, a staff that so many people out there told us couldn't recruit, wouldn't be able to reel in 5-star talent, beat Georgia, who had Coach Williams, who had an established relationship for Dejoun Lee, who a year ago many people were saying they are in the driver's seat in this battle, and they beat T-Rob. Meanwhile, Georgia didn't have the major coaching losses that Alabama sustained. Now, that's not to say that they didn't have guys go elsewhere. That's the nature of the beast. But they didn't lose Kirby Smart. They didn't lose an incredible recruiter in T-Rob. Georgia had the ability to continue this relationship with the position coach in Coach Williams and T-Rob and Kirby Smart, and still, Alabama came out on top of this battle. This is why I continually talk about this battle as being one that you do not need to shortchange. This is a huge win, one Alabama fan should celebrate, because Dejoun Lee, aside from the actual story of how we got here, he's a 5-star. If we look at the 24/7 Sports Composite, the number 22 player in the nation, the number 4 cornerback, and the number 1 player in the state of California. But that was not the only incredible win Alabama got. Far from it. In fact, we have 8 more to go, and we move to a quarterback that I have maintained I am so excited for. And of course, we're talking about Keelan Russell, who may be just outside of 5-star status right now. But once these rankings update, I have no doubt that he will be squarely in the mix for one of the top prospects in all of high school football, and certainly a top 5 quarterback. Because when we currently sit here and talk, he's the number 6 quarterback in the nation. I think he's going to be top 3 when it's all said and done. He currently ranks per the 24/7 Sports Composite as the number 38 player in the nation. As I just said, number 6 quarterback and number 10 player in the state of Texas. But he won Elite 11 MVP. On top of that, he is only known winning at Duncanville, one of the hardest leagues in all of high school football. He's dominated, only sustained 1 loss, and is passing at a percentage above 70% completion percentage, which is absolutely incredible. Not only did he win Elite 11 MVP, but then he went to the Rivals camp and dominated there, winning MVP there as well, against other top quarterbacks. He will be a 5-star. The question isn't if he will be a 5-star. The question is, when will he be a 5-star? On top of that, he has done a phenomenal job recruiting for Alabama. And I think there's a conversation that needs to be had, and we'll have it this evening, 5:30 Central Standard Time, over on the live stream, the roundtable panel. You don't want to miss it, about the importance of having guys in your recruiting class, guys on your roster that are also incredible recruiters. Because this Alabama staff has done a fantastic job, top to bottom. The people that we know, the on-field coaches, but also the people in the background, the supplemental staff that really, like I said earlier in this video, move mountains when it comes to being able to get some of these big wins. But we also need to talk about the viability of players as recruiters, because Keelan Russell is one of those guys that's after a Ty Haywood, that's after a Kalik Lockett, that's after a Caleb Cunningham, an Ackland Deer, a Caleb Edwards. He's done a great job. And he continues to impress everywhere he goes, and that only makes these top prospects want to play on the same team as him. So this was a phenomenal win, and Alabama has their quarterback. We move forward, going back out to the state of California, where Chuck McDonald from Mater Dei High School, standing 6'1", 190 pounds, commits to Alabama. Now, he is the number 76 player in the nation, top 10 cornerback, and top 10 player in the state of California. And whenever we talk about Chuck McDonald, or whenever we talk about any of these prospects from Mater Dei, you're really talking about a prospect that is college ready. Look, we talk about Keelan Russell at Duncanville, and Duncanville is an incredibly difficult league to play in. But Mater Dei in that Trinity League, that might be the best high school league in all of the nation. Now, I get it. It's private, so it's a little bit different comparing that to a public league. But at the end of the day, it's hard to dismiss what Mater Dei has done in terms of what they do every year on the field and the prospects they send to the college game. It's incredible. These guys are so gifted. They're so technically sound. Zabian Brown is a great example of a cornerback Alabama just got from Mater Dei, and many national pundits, don't take my word for it, at the All-American game were saying Zabian Brown was the most technically ready defensive back in the nation, aside from being one of the most gifted, a 5-star guy. So, Chuck McDonald, huge win, continuing that pipeline to Mater Dei, a pipeline every college in the nation, quite frankly, needs to be fostering, needs to be maintaining. Being able to get a win from Mater Dei, that means something. We move forward. We go to the offensive line, where Micah DeBoer, 6'5", 315 pounds, and the number 89 player in the nation per the 24/7 Sports Composite, commits to Alabama. And this is one that really excited Alabama fans. This was a kid that the previous staff wanted. However, he had originally committed to Georgia before decommitting and now ending up in Alabama's recruiting class. And just like whenever we talked about Dejoun Lee, I wanted to point you to the nuance of why I thought this was such a big win, so too do we have to go to the nuance whenever we're talking about Micah DeBoer or any of these offensive linemen. But since we're on Micah DeBoer, we'll have this conversation right now. Whenever this new Alabama staff was assembled, we must remember that Coach Cap wasn't the guy. it did not seem like he was going to be the offensive line coach. And in fact, Coach Huff was on the trail recruiting for Alabama, shaking hands, letting it be known that, hey, I'm going to be the offensive line coach before he took the Seattle Seahawks job. Now, the reason why I find that important is because this Alabama staff is already doing a phenomenal job at getting major wins on an accelerated time frame. What I mean is, if we look at the Dijon Lee battle, and we're talking about coaches that have continuity, yes, Kalen DeBoer has known Dijon Lee, has recruited him for a while, as has Courtney Morgan. But there was a major change of scenery that ended up helping Alabama. But Georgia doesn't have to worry about that change of scenery right now. Kirby is still there. So that's what I mean. This new staff is shaking hands, building relationships, and going up against coaching staffs that have continuity in terms of relationships. Now, Dijon Lee probably wasn't the best example. Micah DeBoer would have been a much more applicable example in this circumstance because Kalen DeBoer and Courtney Morgan had that extended relationship, but Mo Linguist didn't. Mo Linguist, coming from Buffalo, he didn't have that relationship with Dijon Lee. Coach Williams at Georgia did. That's a great example, right? But then when we talk about Micah DeBoer, Kirby Smart and them had that relationship. They had that relationship at a much bigger rate, a much longer rate than this new staff did. But that's not stopping them from getting major recruiting wins. And especially impressive whenever Coach Cap was the last guy to come in there and has been assembling what may end up being the best offensive line class Alabama has seen in quite some time. We move forward. Dawson Merritt, another big-time defensive win, standing 6'3", 215 pounds, and once again, top 100 prospect in the nation per the composite, coming in as the number 92 player in the nation, the number 11 linebacker, and the number 3 player in the state of Kansas. And Dawson Merritt is a really intriguing guy. Whenever we talk about Kalen DeBoer recruits, there is a theme that goes along with what Nick Saban was doing. And that's a versatile prospect, a guy that can play multiple different positions at an elite level, and Dawson Merritt's certainly that guy. Whether you want to rush him off the edge or have him as an inside linebacker, he's got the ability to do both. But Alabama's going to be using him off the edge to absolutely terrorize quarterbacks, and I'm here for it. Moving forward, we arrive at another offensive lineman, Michael Carroll, standing 6'6", 315 pounds, number 187 in the nation, the number 9 interior offensive lineman, and a top 5 player in the state of Pennsylvania. But important to note that Michael Carroll comes in as the number 27 player in the nation per On3. So I'm really interested to see where he ends up when all the dust settles, because I think he is a phenomenally gifted prospect, and one Alabama fans everywhere were over the moon they got. He is a talented guard who actually just went to war with a top player in the class of 2026, Jakeem Stewart, and that was a really fun battle to watch them go one-on-one in those reps. He showed right then and there he is a dude and a guy you cannot ignore. And that same argument I made for DeBoer absolutely carries over. Whenever we're talking about Carroll, whenever we're talking about Mal Waldrop, whenever we're talking about a Jackson Lloyd, I love the work Coach Cap has done. He has really proved that he is a force on the recruiting trail and someone that the national media cannot ignore for the job he's been able to do. But speaking of Jackson Lloyd, we talk about him next. 6'7", 290 pounds, a top 200 prospect in all of high school football, the number 19 offensive tackle, and one of the top players in the state of California. And whenever we talk about continuity of relationships, this is a great example of why that can pay off. Kalen DeBoer and Courtney Morgan, they were real early on Jackson Lloyd. They had fostered a phenomenal relationship with the very talented West Coast offensive lineman, and that relationship really was able to be a determining factor as to why Lloyd ended up at Alabama. Now, Coach Cap had to sell himself. The rest of the staff had to sell himself. There were a lot of other things that had to sell themselves, but at the end of the day, that's what I mean when I'm talking about continuity of relationships. And that's what's made this staff so impressive, is because even in instances where they don't have the long-standing relationships that some of the other people they're recruiting against do have, they're able to overcome that by fostering incredible relationships really quickly. That's why I always talk about it, because it is truly impressive. We move on to the final two. We have Mal Waldrop, 6'5", 320 pounds, 3-star offensive lineman from Alabama. And this is a guy you love to keep home. Listen, I've said this time and time again. If your staff gets a 3-star, you need to celebrate that win. Why? Because one, a kid gets an opportunity to fulfill their dream playing college football just like a 4-star, just like a 5-star, and therefore it is a big win. But 2, your coaching staff evaluated that kid. And if your coaching staff looks at a prospect and says, I don't care whether you're a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5-star, I like how you fit into my scheme, I love your game, and I want you a part of this class, then it is an absolute win when you get that kid a part of your recruiting class. There is no arguing this point. And so whenever I see people saying, oh, I don't like that there's the 3 stars, that's facetious to me. That's disingenuous. If the coaching staff wants them, they need to be celebrated. And secondly, whenever you turn on Mal Waldrop's tape, I don't think anybody with sense would say they wouldn't take him. This is a kid that every university in the nation would line up to add into their recruiting class because he is that good. We move on to the last name before we turn our attention to ask and answer the question, can the momentum continue? And that's London Simmons, 6'3", 295 pounds, 3-star from the state of Mississippi. And this is a guy that I am really excited about. This is a really raw prospect, really green. But whenever he gets into a college, first off, strength and conditioning room, and 2, whenever he starts working with Freddie Roach, I think sky's truly the limit for Simmons. This is an interesting class for the defensive line prospects. Alabama has Antonio Coleman. Now they have Simmons. I'm interested to see what other moves they do, but at the end of the day, Alabama likes Simmons. They like what he's going to be able to bring to the table, and I like his upside, and I'm really excited to see what it all looks like once he gets to the Crimson Tide's campus. But we now need to move forward. We asked the question, can this momentum continue into July? And I think the answer is yes. Now, we need to shift the parameters of this conversation. What I mean when I say that is Alabama got 9 wins in the month of June. I don't expect Alabama to get 9 wins in the month of July because that would put this recruiting class at 29 prospects. But that doesn't diminish the impact of the wins they get. One of the things that I love Kalen DeBoer has done is he's pretty much well filled out this recruiting class to where whenever the season gets here, he's only recruiting with a fine-tooth comb. He's making sure he's maintaining the relationships with the guys already in the class. He's recruiting them every single day, but he doesn't have to worry about getting 10, 15 more guys a part of the recruiting class because the heavy lifting, quite frankly, is done. But that doesn't diminish the quality of win you can get. We start with the Caleb Edwards, who will decide tomorrow, and a guy that many Alabama fans want. Alabama looks to add a tight end into this class, and I think he fits as well as any out there. But you also have an Ackland Deer, who's been crystal balled to Alabama. He recently decommitted from Ole Miss. You have a Caleb Cunningham, who there's talk of he will decide in July. You have all these talented prospects out there who are going to be making their decisions here soon, and Alabama could be in for some massive, massive wins in July. And the momentum from June looks to continue. I can't wait to hear from all of you. Let me know who you're most excited to see commit next. And then let me know what you think about Alabama's incredible month of June. That's it. See ya.